Hello and welcome to the Success Rate. I'm Thuli Magubane. And as you know, the Success Rate is where we get to know one individual, their journey to success. And as our byline says, there's no such thing as an overnight success. So everyone has put in the hours. And there are lots of stories that you never hear about. We only really focus on someone when they're up on stage or they've reached a summit and we celebrate them, but never hear the backstory. Joining us today is, I would say, my idol. So it's very, very entertaining for me. Growing up as a youngster, I used to listen to radio and fell in love with radio. And I think back in the day, my sister and I used to listen to Radio Bob. And the likes of yourselves, is Brenda and Zandile Nzalo, actually influenced my sister and I to become broadcasters as well. We're like, these ladies can do it. We can do it as well. So it's amazing to have you as a guest and to speak to you. You've had a long and illustrious career. So we're going to reflect on that. So just to kick us off, a very fun question, get to know you. So if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
If I had a superpower, that's a big question.
Yes.
It would have to speak to how we speak to ourselves, to be able to show us how to do that.
Yes.
Because I think we live so much on the outside. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a fan of mindfulness.
I like that. So your career really started off in corporate, doing PR. So what brought you to broadcasting?
Because, thank you very much for having me. Really, it's a pleasure, and thanks for your for your wonderful and generous introduction. When you grow up, sometimes you kind of spot a career because it's people are asking you, who do you want to be, what do you want to do, and you're like, I want to choose the most complex of professions. So public relations for me was at the time really a field which didn't have a lot of practitioners from my social circle, but I was also interested in what it meant.
Yes, yeah.
I read up a little bit about it, and but I got to understand that you can apply it in corporate through working with the hospitality industry.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And what it did for me was just expose me to the fact that every initiative, be it business, be it political, be it product related, is about talking to an audience and making them fall in love with it. Yeah.
It is. And then how did these two intersect? The PR and the broadcasting?
Sometimes by sheer coincidence, somebody would ask me to MC something, and I would be able to kind of stand up and run a program and MC it. But also, I've always enjoyed music, and one of the ways to get to know anyone would be to look at their collection. So if I visit you, maybe you would look at somebody's art collection. I would look at their records and say, let's play some music. And I happened to do it around folk who were involved in radio. So I think they spoke about me, and that's how I got invited to audition for a radio show.
And that very first audition, what was going through your mind while it was happening? If you cast back, recall.
I think what was going through my mind or my state of being was the fact that young people are very brave. It was like, it looks like I'm going to do this. Let's see what's going to happen.
Yes.
So there was no feeling of trepidation.
Yeah.
The audition was so smooth. I was asked, normal questions, about life and being, and I answered them. But I think I was also on an adventure to say, is this, what is this really?
Yes, yeah.
So when I got back, because I did the audition during my lunch break, I left a job to go and do an audition. And when I got back to my desk at work, I got a phone call to say you did well. So then the nervousness started.
Yes, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be on radio.
Yeah.
And so now getting into the journey, you're one of the very first women, practitioners as broadcasters. I think when we were growing up, this was an industry where there were a lot of men, and you could name them. And I think yourself, Shadow Twala, Zandile Nzalo, one of the very first women to be on big, radio stations and really trail blazers. So when you reflect on your journey, I don't know, it's what, 30
30 odd
odd
years,
years later, how has the industry changed for women?
It's been quite a journey. I'm not sure if there's been a change. I think there've been some movements.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because in some quarters, I do believe that women could bring certain content to the fore, and then I'd believe that there's change.
Yes.
Because women represent a particular mind frame in terms of certain issues, especially on public radio. But what has really, for me, been dynamic is the fact that I've seen women management.
Yes.
I've seen women leading radio or even just broadcasting concerns, which is great. I've also seen a higher instance of women broadcasters across the age spectrum.
Yes.
And so I think that's a great thing. We're reaching that place where we can balance out. Yeah.
Any youngsters that you're a fan of?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I happen to be, naturally, my leaning is around music radio, and I'm excited by the new music traveler who's behind the deck, are researching the music of the world. There's a young lady who is a broadcaster. She works between Channel Africa and I think Radio 2000. Her name is Matsako Musito. I love the way her take on music because she explores African music. I think there's a future there. But some of them are not even on radio. They are charting their own paths on their own platforms.
Yes, yeah. So what's success to you? What's your definition of success?
Success for me is finding your perfect space where you're comfortable enough to be vulnerable and where you're comfortable enough to share of yourself in your best ability and where you feel it is recognized. I think you're successful once you can do that.
And do you regard yourself successful?
I regard myself having achieved a few successes in life, and I regard myself as continuing to explore that. But I do also appreciate the fact that I'm on a. Somebody said it beautifully. In fact, she said, "I'm at ease."
I like that. I'm at ease. I will remember that. How are you? I'm at ease.
Yeah.
So, reflecting on your journey, what has been your biggest highlight and low light, if you can call it that?
So my biggest highlight was learning a little bit more about myself. Because of the platform where I work, it's always characterized by supposed competitiveness, And as a result of that, you learn the humility of knowing that firstly you're as good as your last job and that you have to keep on proving yourself and that there are people that can do it better than you and that you have your own unique strengths. I think finding that and knowing that it does not deter me from aspiring has been very empowering for me. So that humility, very important. Yeah. What has been my low has been maybe things that I let go because of the platform. I don't think I have worked hard enough on the earning side of the business. It's a skill that I overlooked for a long time, and I can see how it catches up with us. We work in a space where we don't get long-term contracts.
Of course.
So it affects the way you plan.
You're happy if you get that 1 year.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And then when it comes to contract renewal time, everyone's nervous. When you go into the office and sit down with the programs manager, you're waiting. Okay, am I in? Am I out?
Yeah.
And I mean, having to deal with those uncertainties. Obviously people think radio is the only thing that you do, but obviously you've got your business, you've got the foundation as well. So when you're sitting there with the programs manager and you're waiting to hear, you're in or out. Do you ever think that maybe if you're out, that's the end, and now you're just going to focus on the other things, or you're hoping that things would continue?
You know, in the way that the industry is shaped, you actually hope that you're still in, because being in a broadcasting platform is almost like a business card. You know, it keeps you on the radar and people know what you're doing.
True,
And
yeah.
it's always good for your business. So sometimes you actually, but it makes you focus too much on being in to a point that sometimes you undersell the value that you bring to that platform.
True.
But having said that, sometimes you have to reflect on why you are going out, because maybe it's time to reset.
True, yeah.
Yeah. So through the years, that's what I've learned. You know, every request to say we're not renewing has always opened new doors. Yeah.
I like that. Because I think people early in the industry, everyone is, nervous about not coming back. But I think people who've had longevity in the industry have had ins and outs.
Yeah.
You've had those seasons where you've been off air and then you return.
Yes.
Because, once the radio bug bites you,
Oh man.
it never lets go. You'd have
Yeah.
to find yourself behind the mic. So let's talk about the entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah.
Because obviously you started off in corporate, you've worked in broadcasting. Do people take you seriously as a businesswoman?
Firstly, I think, when you work through communications and PR, people actually realize that you have a business acumen. But usually people also look at you. Sometimes people call me a DJ. And I never know what to do with that, because I don't believe I'm a DJ. I believe I'm a storyteller, and music is my platform.
Yes.
So sometimes people don't take you seriously. Oh, which Brenda? No, that DJ. No. We're looking for a more corporate person. So it's a balancing
Yes,
act.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge being an entrepreneur?
The biggest challenge being an entrepreneur is to think like an entrepreneur, make decisions like an entrepreneur. And it's again a balancing act, because when you work in an art form, you tend to think with a different mind. And then when you apply your decisions, So what I've learned over the years is that pricing, productivity, and also brand management is important.
Talking about pricing and I guess value, I find that women entrepreneurs tend to underprice.
Always.
Why is that?
Um,
Also reflecting on your own journey.
Yeah, because people talk to you first, through to your heart, and they negotiate with your heart before thinking what is fair. So what I've learned to do has been to always look at what is market related. Over the years, that's what
Yes,
I've learned.
yeah.
But definitely, people tend to underprice women, and it's that whole question of parity, equity, that still has to be applied. That somebody may be of the same profession as you, but if they are male, they command higher.
Do you think we undervalue ourselves?
I like to look on the brighter side of things. I think we have something in our gene that makes us be more compassionate sometimes to the situation at hand, even at negotiation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think women hate negotiations.
Oh,
Asking for your number. Ask for your
who
number.
came up with that word?
I don't
It
know.
must have been somebody of the male gender.
Yes.
I think, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
But I think when people ask you for a number, it is so hard, because it says remove everything else from the equation.
Yes, yeah.
And it's sometimes very hard. Yeah.
And then the biggest lesson for you as an entrepreneur?
The biggest lesson for me is relationships. Bringing relationships that work at a social level into a business level has been the biggest lesson for me, because you then have to be working on relationships that were affected by the business thinking or
Yes.
decisions you have to make. You lose some of your relationships, and sometimes it's within people with whom you work in the same industry, and you have to always bump into each other. So for me, that has been the hardest lesson, to say, if there's an idea, don't think from your immediate circle of those that you prefer. Think find the best man for the job. best
I like
woman.
that. And have you ever worked with friends and family? How did that turn out?
That's where the lessons came
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
Friends and family.
Yeah.
Um, I would like now, at this stage in my life, to work more with family. I find that I appreciate the way the younger folk in my family look at what I've achieved thus far
Yes,
and
yeah.
what they've learned from it. I recently had my niece interview me about broadcasting.
I like that.
I was mind blown by her understanding of the
Yes,
space.
yeah.
And you know, and my sister was saying, but it's due to observing you over the
Yes,
years.
yeah.
So I can imagine if I'm building a family business, how she would add value. Yeah.
I like that. And you do need the youngsters to bring a different energy and a different perspective in whatever you're doing.
Exactly.
So we're gonna get into our fire 5, which is 5 quick questions, fun questions. We you
Why
don't
am I
have to
scared?
you don't have to think too hard about it. So the first answer that comes to mind. What's your favorite guilty pleasure?
I have a sweet tooth.
Cake, chocolate, what is it? Anything.
All
It's
of the
like-
above, especially with dark chocolate in the middle. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you meet someone for the first time, what is the first thing you notice about them?
What their eyes are saying.
And what do the eyes say?
The eyes say a lot. They determine how far I go. They determine how to keep my distance. Because sometimes you can be over the top with people. So the eyes are a mirror of how far. Yeah.
Okay. And then do you exercise? What's your favorite exercise?
I've always loved walking. It was the easiest.
The easiest.
I'm learning about weights.
Yeah.
I'm falling in love with just stretching my body
But
like that.
yes, yeah. Have you tried weightlifting?
No, I'm still on dumbbells. I don't call it weightlifting, but yes, yeah.
And then
Strength
have you ever
training.
been at the gym and you're trying weights and these goras are looking at you?
Do you know? Have you been a fly on the wall on my sessions? I mean, I find that it's intimidating when people that know are standing next to you. You almost feel like, but sometimes I feel like if somebody could come to me and say, "Do it this way," I'd appreciate that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what's your favorite go-to food after a gig?
After a gig,
Because it's usually late.
and it's salty pleasures all the way. Yeah.
Salty pleasure.
Yeah.
So maybe chicken licking wings.
Maybe
Are you
chick-
are you a fan?
I'm a fan of nighttime snacking, generally. So one of the ways to recover from a gig that night is to have a favorite snack. But funny enough, I've been known to have cereal at that time of the night. Yeah.
Okay. Are you a bath or shower girl?
Bath.
Okay. So what's your bath ritual?
Ooh,
Bath people
oils.
have have rituals.
It's a
yes.
whole. It's a
Yes.
whole story. Oils, candle, scent, just like and a bit of music,
Yeah.
but everything and privacy completely.
And glass of wine?
Yeah. We can glass of wine, a tipple, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Tiffle, red or white?
Red,
Are you a red girl?
yeah.
And white, are you one of those people, no, it gives me, gas or whatever, or Not
No,
really,
it's
it's just
just
a
my
preference.
body's reaction. Yeah,
it's
that's
just
all.
a preference
Yeah,
thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Thuli Magubane, the host of The Success Rate. I hope you've been enjoying our episodes. And if you do, please subscribe, spread the message by liking it and also sending it to friends and family. We're trying to grow this family and make the circle bigger. And the industry has changed quite a bit, I think, and with the advent of social media. And we've had so-called influencers being broadcasters overnight. I mean, what's your comment on that? I mean, it being a practitioner, someone who's been in the industry for a long time and seeing these changes.
I've marveled at firstly how they, the reason they got in because they brought the numbers, and I understand it's a business of numbers. But I've been impressed quite a number of times by those that when they land, they actually realize that the game is more serious, that there's audiences out there who may be more discerning and demanding of them. And those that have risen to that occasion, I've always looked at with a chuckle and smile. I'm like, yeah, that's what it's all about. And On the rest, I've sometimes been a little bit off-put by the fact that for where we are as a society, we need to take ourselves seriously in what we talk about.
True.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, this is putting you on the spot. You're not much of a journalist, but I mean, the state of journalism in 2024. Your thoughts?
My thoughts is that, it's again about, this blanket rule that we've always put in. I love working with young people. There's a fresh way of doing things all the time.
Yeah.
But also, as a young person, I've been guided. I never just walked in. I remember a PR manager I used to work with at Sun International who was amazing because I could bounce off my ideas too. But today we put so much pressure on young people incoming that they need to know. So sometimes the newsroom is full of juniors. And it's a very volatile space.
Yes.
Reaction and also how, so I think we need to be more mindful of that. I do believe that we've almost like removed the edge and the bite out of journalism as a result.
And is there one particular individual, when you reflect on your journey, that you think that person was quite instrumental in one way or another, getting you to where you are right now?
Listening to others,
Yeah.
listening to other broadcasters.
So there's no individual you can say so-and-so played a pivotal role in my career.
Can I just say that Tim Modise has always been an important presenter because of the way he changes. He almost changes character as soon as he gets behind the mic. And, it has always told me that that's what he sees about his work. And I think that's how we should be when we get behind the microphone. He's got this direct gaze.
Yes,
He's always well prepared. He's in for the story, yeah.
Talking about preparation, I think people tend to think that you come on air and you turn on the green button and it's all systems go. Maybe they don't understand some of the behind-the-scenes work that's required. What has that been for you? I mean, some of the work that you put in before you turn on the green button.
Yeah, some of the work that you have to do before is that when you do turn the green button on, you got to sound like you didn't work that hard. I think it's an acquired act, but also that you know when you're not doing your best. So what it means for me, for instance, is that as soon as one show finishes, you start with the next. Just before you go onto that hot seat, you need to remind yourself of the reason, what you want to get out of that, conversation with your audience, reading about them. And knowing what you don't know is so important.
True, yeah.
I think it shows when you don't. Yeah.
And your best radio moment? Or memorable one? Maybe we should say memorable radio moment.
The first time I did a radio show, it was walking in, learning that I've just got to jump in now. There's no other way. I can't hide behind the person who's training me. But coming out of it and finding people, cheering me on and saying, good job, that was incredible for me. But I think without dampening the mood, when I was asked to leave the last time I had a show that I had to do to say goodbye, something happened. The Archbishop died. I never got a chance to say goodbye. I literally had 15 minutes.
Yes.
All my preparation on that day had to fly out the window. And that moment was for me very grounding because I had to learn to leave everything behind.
And focus on what's happening right now. And I think that's the currency of radio. You have to be
graceful at all times.
And I think my sister, her big radio moment, or memorable one, was Mam Miriam Makaiba phoning in. She was, I can't remember what the topic was about, and she was standing in for someone at SAFM. And then Mam Miriam Makaiba calls in to contribute to the show. And she's like,
I'm sure she asked you, is that you for sure?
Yes, because when she saw, next, Miriam Makaiba's like, is this a joke? And then when she came on air, and heard her speaking, and she realized, oh my God, it is the real Miriam Makeba
Right.
on the line. So it was one of those very unexpected moments that she always thinks about. Is like that. That is a memorable radio moment. And talking about memorable, what is one thing that you'd like to be remembered for when people reflect on who Sis Brenda is, your achievements, the legacy? What is one thing that you want people to remember you for?
To remember that I'd love to remember for being very true to my mission, which was to use radio and music as a tool of knowledge, and that I came into it with all the good intentions, and
Yes.
and that I appreciate the returns that came from that. Being, having a network across the globe. I mean, jazz music, which is my favorite medium, is one of the most spiritual mediums to work on. Very grounding, but also I learned a lot. Yeah.
And you mentioned that when you turn down, music is there. What role, what role has jazz music played in your life?
So jazz
Personally, yeah.
Personally, jazz music firstly gave me the art of listening, and listening with respect and honor to the music itself, and learning that there's no bad record. It's just what the producer or the creative put on the table, and being able to treat everyone with that understanding. But it also, for me, it covered, I, as somebody with dyslexia, I was very excited that Richard Branson has launched a university for dyslexic, I think it's a gifted space to be, but it has not been portrayed like that socially. So what jazz radio gave me was the ability to think, to contribute new knowledge, and that has really affirmed me and pushed my career.
And has there been pressure being a specialist, that you continually have to be at the peak of your game?
Yeah, it is. When I was saying earlier on that there's a perceived competitiveness, people pit us against each other, which is not the case really. We all hang out, we learn from one another.
Yes.
But you have to be at the edge of the game. You always have to know what's coming. But also you have to, because jazz is what it is, it makes you question what is the future. Yeah.
And talking about, obviously, the future in jazz, a lot of young people don't listen to to jazz music. How do you get a young person who's into mapiano to start appreciating jazz? Do they even have the ear?
Well, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even just calling the music amapiano was inspired by jazz, to say, here's how young jazz can sound. So I do believe that young people peek into the jazz world without telling us. But also there's musicians that, from the hip-hop space, for instance, that reference jazz a lot. Through time, in fact, I can mention people such as Kamasi Washington, Mos Def, and young people listen to those. It's funny that there's some classic players that people would say, have you heard this record? And I laugh and say, that comes from a 1962 album. And, so I think young people are listening. We are the ones that are putting borders on the music by naming it. Yeah.
Because people think of jazz as, I don't know, stuck-up kind of genre, if you listen to jazz. I mean, when I think about my time away jazz, are those guys who are serious, they get together on a Sunday, my leather jacket, some of them drive those big cars.
Yes.
It's a serious time.
Yes.
That's the image that's often portrayed with jazz.
I think we needed that image. We
Yeah.
needed to say that, there's some social practices that bring dignity, that make us take ourselves seriously.
Yes.
And I think we just possibly pushed it too far. So there are those isms about the jazz police are around, so you better play it with integrity. But also I like that. I think we need that as well.
Yeah.
There's a space for that.
I like that. And then parting shots, your last reflections on success?
My last reflections on success, it's always a tough question. I think, mindfulness is very important. Always ask yourself why you're doing it. Because the people that receive or buy the product or, receive your wisdom as a broadcaster, they can tell when you're not real. And that is the edge that you have against your so-called competitor. Because when people know that you speak to them, or they get a sense that you're doing it for a bigger value.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you very much, Sis Brenda.
Listen.
It was lovely, It's wonderful to be interviewing someone who influenced your own life decisions.
You're such
and
a
careers.
wonderful sparring partner because you're always on the next one. Thank you.
Yes, I'm glad.
I've yet to develop my chops in interviews, but thanks
Yeah.
for making it easy.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And I really enjoyed having Sis Brenda. And if you've enjoyed the interview, please leave some comments what your reflections are, what you've learned from Sis Brenda Sisane. And of course, please share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button.